morning, lovely friends. How are you all doing today? I do hope you're well. This is a bit of a pickle of a start to the video. Oh dear. So, this whole video that you're about to see, I actually shot all of it yesterday because there's a storm. A storm has kind of landed today. It's really windy out there. It's been chucking down, so I wanted to get the herb stuff done yesterday. All well and good, fantastic. Did all my work in the garden, did the shooting that I wanted to do, got home, downloaded the footage out of my camera into the computer and began editing, and during the course of about an hour and a half my computer crashed 3 times. So annoying. Never mind. However, I think each time it crashed, because I still had the camera card in the computer, I think it just corrupted the camera card somehow. So I lost a bit of footage. I lost one whole section, and the reason I'm doing this intro now is because I lost the first half of my introduction yesterday. So I'm going to briefly tell you what was going on, and then the original footage is going to cut in. It's going to be a bit jarring, but it'll cut in. And then in about 3 or 4 shots time, when we go out to the garden, well, I'll explain when I'm out there today, if I can, because it really is windy. So, I'm starting off just outside the shed in my pot that's got the massive lemon balm in. I'm harvesting. I was explaining as well how I'd harvested, I can't remember when it was now, maybe August. And when I harvested that time, I cut it really quite hard back, did a big harvest. Remember, I had it hanging in the shed, and in the intervening sort of 3 months or so it's shot up again. It's massive, absolute huge bush. So I was doing my last harvest of it for the year. Now it'll just kind of, the sort of remaining stalks, they'll die back a bit. One of the reasons I wanted to get it done, apart from doing my harvest, was also so I could have a look at the trough with my honeysuckle and rose cuttings, see how they're doing. That's coming, you'll see that. And where the video cuts back in, I was just talking about the uses of lemon balm, how, you know, it can make a lovely tea, tisane, but actually I really like it for my bath. So what I do is I hang it to dry, and then you can either just rub the dry leaves off the stems, just use those, or as I often do is I sort of rough chop it. By this time it'll be at home with sort of kitchen scissors, what have you. Chuck it in the blender, in the blitzer, and just give it kind of a pulse, and it just chops it up a bit finer, so that then I can use a little handful in a muslin bag for my bath. Just hang the muslin bag over the hot water bath tap. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. And now that gets us to the point where I think the original footage should kick in. My goodness, it's so blowy out there. So I'm going to leave you with that, and then after we've spent some time outside the shed doing all those bits, I'm going to go into the garden and see if I can show you what I was trying to show you yesterday in one particular clip. Bath is running. Gorgeous. It's just so fresh and vibrant. I love it. The other thing about getting this done today, oh, there's masses and masses and masses of it. It's going to give me a chance to look at the trough. If you remember, in the late spring, I had a really nice, sort of like I'm going to have today, a bit of a tinkering day with flowers and herbs. And I planted up into the trough my honeysuckle cutting that I'd taken in the summer of 2020, and the little climbing rose cuttings that Paul gave me, and I think he took those cuttings in 2020 as well. One of the reasons I wanted to have a look at them today is, well, partly I could see this bit hanging over. I'll bring you closer so you can see. But also, so there's a cutting of each here, and there's a cutting of each on the fence behind the deck. Now that the rhubarb has really died back, I can see those cuttings again. and it prompted me. I was thinking, oh yeah, let's check all the cuttings today. It's quite a stark difference between the two lots. I've just realised that's a bit of the rose climbing on the floor. So let's bring you in closer so we can look at these. I'm going to get them tied in, and I'm going to do a bit of snipping, and I'll tell you why. Okay, so with the honeysuckle, here I am. I've got these two sort of lead pieces, and they're heading in the right direction. What I'm going to do with them both is just tie them into the shed post here. Actually, we're a bit low for you to see. Let me tip you up a bit. Oh my goodness, it's days like today, and I think, wouldn't it be amazing to have a camera person helping me? Right, oh, there's another bit down there. So I'm just going to tie them, like I said, just loosely tie them to the fence, not fence, the shed, this sort of shed pole. I'm going to tie this string to the pole, and then so I can get a firm tie there. Oh, I need another pair of hands to hold my bow. And then just loosely around the plants. I mean, they're sort of heading in the right direction anyway, but this will just keep them going in the right direction. And then also, excuse me, strong winds over the winter, it'll keep them going that way. But I'm also left my secateurs on the table. I'm also just going to cut out the growing tips, because I don't want them to get too tall. And where should we cut? There and there. Yeah, I don't want them to get too tall, maybe just to the sort of underside of the roof, but I would like them to bush out. So by cutting out the growing tips, there are little side shoots down at the bottom that will encourage them to fill out. It's filling out. Let me show you now down there. And while I'm at it, I need to get my thick gloves, because this rose, it's a climber, therefore it's got lots and lots and lots of wee prickles on it. Let me grab my gloves. Hopefully from there you can see how the honeysuckle is filling out. These are all new little side shoots. That's one bit of the rose, but the other bit, it's gone AWOL behind. Ouch, ouch, prickly ouch. I think the honeysuckle did better than the rose, because over there it kept getting more, it was getting more light than the rose, because I think the rose got a bit swamped by the lemon balm. So I'm going to just bring the rose up that away. It should climb and scramble on its own, but I will give it a bit of a tie in just to help it. Oh, and while I'm here with the trough, and just pull out any weeds. This was all alyssum. It's over now, it's self-seeded, it's gone over now, and it will have dropped its seeds, so hopefully that's a nice bit of self-seeding for next year. The other thing to mention with the trough is, you know, I've talked about it a fair bit this year about how, you know, it has been a really, really wet year. October, there was a whole week of just lashing heavy rains. However, because this trough's in a bit of a rain shadow from the roof of the shed, but also from the sort of the wall of the shed, every which way. So I do make sure when I pop down to make sure it's damp, give it a water. This end is a little bit exposed, so does get some rain, but not enough for the whole trough. So yeah, I do keep an eye on it. Right, what was I going to do? Oh, I'm going to tie that bit of rose in. I think it's far too windy. Let's go back in the shed. But the reason I'm here is to show you that's the rose cutting, and that's the honeysuckle cutting behind the rhubarb. These are planned to go up the fence, but let me explain about this little situation back in the shed. Gosh, it is blowy out there. It actually wasn't picking up too badly on the camera, I just checked, but it's gusting. Yeah, so we'll just talk about it in here. Just briefly about the rose and honeysuckle cuttings against the fence there. Yeah, a couple of things. One, rather like the trough in the eaves of the shed, where they're up against the fence there, that is a bit of a rain shadow. In other words, it's protected from the rain so it doesn't get as wet. When I first dug the holes to put them in, when was it? It was about May. The ground was really quite dry. So one thing I've made sure over the season, despite the fact that we've had quite a lot of rain, is I have kept an eye on moisture levels there and chucked a can of water on them every now and again. Now, the main reason I wanted to show you those is to contrast them with the ones outside the shed, which have romped away beautifully. And I think the big issue with those two, and why they haven't got going, is I planted them really late. I mean, at the same time as the shed trough ones. But the lateness of planting those, I think, is what's impacted on them and them not really getting away, is because in front, the rhubarb got really big really quickly and just completely shaded them out. So a couple of things. I think next year I'm hoping that they will get away, because obviously they're in the ground. They've got established, they've obviously got their roots down. There are lots of little signs of new growth, new little shoots. So they've obviously, you know, they've put their roots down and got established. Great. And what I'm hoping is next spring they'll really start to get away before the rhubarb comes in. And also this year, because I missed so much time in the garden, I was missing harvesting the rhubarb. So what I'm hoping is that next year I'll be harvesting the rhubarb more regularly, particularly the leaves towards the back, to keep giving them, in order to keep giving the rose and honeysuckle space and light. And I think, yeah, once they get established, once they're up, you know, 1.5 foot or so, they'll be grand, because they'll be up in the light by then. That's the hope, anyway. Now, was there anything else I wanted to remember to mention about that? It's just, it's weird. It's like, what was I talking about yesterday when I was talking about them? I can't remember. No, I don't think there's anything. You know, they're a bit small, but they are established, obviously, because of those lovely new signs of growth. So we just have to wait and see next year, don't we? Right, what's next? I think let's have a little sit on the deck and do some work there. Oh, hopefully we're a bit sheltered from the worst of the wind here on the deck. I've been looking forward to this day for ages, because time in the garden has been really short, as you know, blah blah blah, boing boing boing. But we're at that time of year when so much of the work is real grunt work. It's all quite physical, you know, moving bricks around the garden again to weigh down cardboard, moving compost around, what have you. Anyway, so at the beginning of October, I'd sort of made a promise to myself, stupid, I shouldn't have, but I really wanted to have the whole garden tucked up by the end of October. You know what? It hasn't happened. Rain, other stuff, but never mind. I have been able to do, you know, a good chunk of stuff, but I'm feeling a bit tired today. So rather than sort of say, oh, well, I won't go to the garden at all, I've planned it so that everything I do today is really quite gentle and just lovely and therapeutic. So, firstly, these are going to go into the cold frame. Well, they've been in the cold frame. I've just taken them out for now to tend to them before they go back in. I'm going to try to overwinter my pelargoniums in the cold frame this year. They're pretty tough little plants. And I know in sheltered spots in gardens this far south, they do overwinter. However, in my garden, it's generally mild in winter, but I was mentioning this the other day. What was it about the broad beans? We do get this wind that whips right across the garden, and it really does chill things down. So I'm not going to risk leaving them out. I think the cold frame will be just sufficient protection for them, both in terms of keeping that wind off them and just keeping the temperature, just slightly above freezing. They should be okay. But before they all go in there, I'm going to basically deadhead them, remove any of the dead leaves, just generally give them a bit of a tidy up. It's all lovely work to do, isn't it, at this time of year? I think it's great if like me, after a week of grunt work, you feel a bit, then give yourself one of these really nice, kind of gentle, quiet jobs to do. And the other thing, with all my sort of pots and things, it's a good chance to have a little look at them to see if any weed seeds have floated in there, and if little weed seedlings are appearing, get them out now. Don't leave them, and then next spring they get a head start. The two big pots behind me, one's got the blueberry in, this one's empty, and it will have my sweet peas in next year. I can see that over and over again the compost has been disturbed, presumably by squirrels burying peanuts, no doubt, but also acorns. This spring, just gone, spring 2021, it was amazing the number of little oak seedlings that I pulled out of the beds, where actually they're amazingly tenacious, because you go to pull them out, they won't come out. So you dig down, you find the acorn, and there's this lovely root, and the root can be like 6 inches long already, and then that little shoot coming out. Now, I hate pulling them out and destroying them, but I can't have a field of oak trees here. And I did ask around if anyone wanted them for their garden, what have you, but no, couldn't find homes for them, so compost. Okay, this is my peppermint, and again, I'm just going to give everything a bit of a haircut, a bit of a tidy up. I could do this in the spring rather than do it now, but I don't know, there's something quite therapeutic about getting things tidied up at this time of year. I'll just sit it on the deck now rather than in the herb bed. Of course, there are some things which I don't tidy up at all. The beautiful Verbena bonariensis, I won't tidy that up at all. They will stay now, those seed heads, right through until March next year. There will be a real last minute tidy up, because all through the winter it's a bit of habitat, but also those seeds are loved by goldfinches, and I love arriving on site, especially with the ones at the top end where my number sign is, and I always end up disturbing them, but they come back later. But I can arrive and then 8, 9, 10 little goldfinches they'll fly off, up and off. Okay, this is the marjoram, again a haircut, but this is also what I was saying about, can you see at the front here, these little weeds that have flown in? It's a bit heavy to hold up in the air. I will get in there with my hori knife. They're not ones that are going to just pull out, but I'll get in there with my hori knife to get them out. Again, I don't want them to get established, and then as soon as we start getting a bit more daylight and a bit warmer days next spring, for them to romp away, because that's not what I'm growing. I'm growing marjoram. The marjoram flower heads have long since gone over. I let them go to flower because, excuse me, the bees love them. I was mentioning it in a previous video that when I first planned to have the herb bed, the whole idea was it was all for me. Medicines, beauty, what have you. But as it got established, even in that first year, oh my goodness, I could see just how much the bees and all sorts of other insects were loving it. So I kind of, you know what, I've pretty much given it over to them, apart from the lavender. I mean, I do harvest bits, but perhaps not as much as my original intention was. Okay, that's little things dealt with. They can all just sit on the deck. I'll put the geraniums back in the cold frame in a second. We're still really quite mild. Nighttime temps, single digits, but in high single. Oh, I keep forgetting what to look it up for Fahrenheit. So in the UK, in centigrade, it's sort of 7 or 8. I think is that around 50 Fahrenheit? High 40s? Anyway, it's not freezing. So I leave all the windows open for now, because if I shut them all now, when we're having day, I mean, it's not sunny at all today. But on a sunny day, it's going to bake in there, which I don't want them to do. So yeah, I'll keep an eye on temperatures, and when it looks like we're going to start to get really cold, just close up the cold frame. Right, next job, over there. Still flowering, let's leave it. I don't want any more love and nest. Need snips. The lovage a bit more tidy. Snips for the sweet Sicily. Oh, I've lost my stepping place. I'm going to come on to this in a second. There's a bit of an issue here. Sweet Sicily snipped. Yeah, let me show you this hyssopy issue. Oh la la! The hyssopy issue. There is a stepping stone there. This hyssop, oh my goodness, I've pruned it hard every year, try and keep it compact, but it's gone everywhere. In front, there was a lavender bush, but I cut this bit of hyssop back, and the lavender underneath was completely flattened and had turned, I mean, it was just dead wood. It was completely gone over. At that end, you can see it's really, let me see, I'll show you. Here is the bergamot, and you can see how there's the bergamot. That hyssop is in danger of crushing the bergamot, that side. Here you can see it's over my stepping stone, it's into the verbena. I'm a little bit undecided at the moment. I'm going to have a think about it for a few more days, but I think I'm going to take the whole thing out. Now, the bees, again, it's one that the bees love, the flowers, to come along and get all the goodiness from the flowers, and then the seed heads, again, birds will have the seed heads. I don't know what to do. It's just that it's taking over, and I don't really want it to. Yeah, I might give it another hard prune, leave it over the winter and have a think about it before next spring. I would like to have more lavender, or I'd like to have, I think I want the option of having something else there, picking something else. I'll have a think on it though. I've got loads of little clumps of chives dotted through the herb bed, and I love them because their flowers, that beautiful lilac, gorgeous, gorgeous colour. It's one of the first colours in the herb bed, and it comes before the lavender. So it's kind of, it was sort of planned. So there's clumps between all the lavenders. The idea being that I get this lovely colour first, and of course it's usable. But then as these fade, the lavender is all coming. And I haven't deadheaded them all summer, as you can see. The clumps grow a little bit more each year because all these seeds drop. In terms of deadheading, oh my goodness, it couldn't be easier. Just hand to the bottom of the plant, just very gently, I've got a grip, very gently pull, 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 pull. And you see, it pulls out the dead stuff. Dead stuff. I mean, I'm doing it it's quite a firm little grip down there. Oopla, I'm getting tangled with that borage. Dead stuff. Oh, and the occasional live bit. That'll go home and go into lunch. Yeah. Get all of these out. Let that plant rest over the... Oh, that borage, I might put a little stick up for it. It's pretty. Just give the plant a rest over the winter. And then... Oh, that lovely chivy, oniony smell. Yeah, just run my fingers up through it. Let it rest. And then next year... Oh, look forward to those first lovely bits of colour in the herb bed, along with the blue scabious I've got. So I'll go around and do each of my little clumps like that just now. The rosemary here and tucked inside the sage have gone a bit naughty and rampant this year. The sage looks to have died back completely. So I'm going to go in there, going to snip it all out. The rosemary, as you can see, it's right over the path. So I'm going to cut this right back too. And in doing so, I will be creating a harvest as well. I'm going to take some out of the top of the bush too. I was thinking about taking some cuttings. I'm not sure whether I'll do that today or not. But I will at least, I want to clear this path because it keeps tripping me. And get this, oh my goodness, let me show you. It's just, this is the sage. It's dead as a dodo. So, yeah, it's definitely a clipping and snipping and tidying day today. How lovely. I have a feeling I'm going to create a bit of a bald patch on this side, but you know what? It doesn't matter. It's such a massively productive plant. And I'm always pretty brutal when I harvest and prune and hack it. It's more important to me that I've got this path clear. Oh, the smell. Rosemary is another one that I love in the bath, either in the bath or for my hair as a final rinse. Just make it up like you would tea, like for a cup of tea. Chuck it over your hair afterwards. Gorgeous. And doing these sort of much quieter, more gentle jobs, they definitely feel like a reward. Yesterday I was weeding in the bed that you're in. Oh my goodness. I've never had weeds like it. This is the first year ever, where I haven't weeded all season. Hello, buddy. Do you want a haircut, Rusty? Now, this sage. Yeah. Wow. Tangled mess. what I'd like to do with this bed, which is why I'm thinking I should take cuttings. I'd like to dig it out, extend it a bit, and sort of start it again without sage. I really don't use sage very much. It's nice for a few things, but to be honest, there are so many folk around who, you know, share, oh, would you like some sage? That I'm sure if I don't grow sage, but do grow the rosemary, I can always swap for some. Yeah, it's all this, this little bed I put in about 6 years ago. It's about a foot and a half, 2 feet, that's all. And the sage and the rosemary went in. They were never meant to stay. They were always meant to be going in that end, but they just stayed. They got established. Obviously the sage is not happy and has died, but the rosemary is happy, so it can stay. The smell though, it's making me feel like having a sleep. No time for sleeping, Vivi. Chop chop. I need to get round that side to cut out the sage from that side. Gosh, it's getting super windy out there all of a sudden. A little bit of respite in the shed for a second. I'm going to just tie things up. As usual, I've talked more than I realised. So, I may also this afternoon do some deadheading of the cosmos. There have been enough flower, heads go over, seed and drop, hopefully to have some self-seeders for next year. If I do a bit of deadheading, hopefully it'll prolong the blooming. Although with the cosmos, the first frost we get, it'll just wipe them out. They ought to see me through November. I may do that today, I may not. It's a bit of an effort for just a couple more weeks of blooms, isn't it? The other thing I may deadhead today is my rose. You saw the other day some little blooms coming on it. Oh, so pretty. That, I've had it flowering right up to Christmas before now. If I did do a deadhead, I think towards the end of August, beginning of September. That's encouraged this second flush of blooms. It's so lovely. That I think is worth it. But yeah, it's definitely one of those days for just slowing the tempo down a bit. Oh, and I made a decision with regards to that hyssop. Looking at it, and remember I'd cut a whole chunk of it away already that had flattened the lavender. Looking at it, it's spread, it's over a metre. I mean, it's just massive, and really for that bed where I'm trying to have quite a few things in, it's too big. I don't mind lavender's getting that big. So I've made the decision today and I've pruned it back really hard, really, really hard. I mean, I've always pruned it back quite hard, but this is harder than I've ever done before. So there's a possibility maybe it won't come back next spring. I mean, I've left some green on it, of course. Now, if it doesn't come back next spring, will I cry? No. I've loved it, I've enjoyed it, the bees and the birds, and they've all loved it, but it's just, I mean, it was just getting out of control. That's our Gary. The one on the other side, it had a sister on the other side of my little brick path in the middle. I have no idea why, but that completely died this year. Just died. So yeah, that's cut back hard. Over the winter, I can think about, I might go back to my herb books and just have a look through and think, is there something else I'd like to grow there that will attract the bees, butterflies, insects, and that perhaps I might make use of, but won't get quite so big. Yeah, so I'll enjoy that actually over the winter, just browsing my herb books and seeing what else I think I might like to put. I think it's probably going to be in place of the hyssop. Who knows? It may come back next year, and because I pruned it so hard, it may stay a little bit more compact. We'll see. That's the joy of gardening, isn't it? Is we're always creating, changing, open to possibilities. Just don't you know, don't get stuck in a rut. Yay! It's not supposed to rain today, but it looks like it might. So I'm going to say cheerio to you all for now. Rusty's just disappeared. I've got a feeling he'll be back though, because it really is picking up out there. Leaves swirling right outside my door. Yeah, cheerio for now, and I will see you again really soon. Probably for the November tour. October went so quickly, didn't it? Goodness me. All right, see you soon. Take care, everyone.